Hi, this is Maya Maida, and you're listening to the Food Solidarity Podcast. Conversations with people around the world who are using the power of food to create social change. Miss Adriane Mack is the CEO and founder of Miss Mack Enterprises, a business development company based in Harlem, New York. Oof, New York City, how I miss it so. The city that never sleeps, the Big Apple. It very much still holds dear in my heart. Ooh, once a New Yorker, always a New Yorker. Hey Adriane, how are you today? I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining the podcast. And how are you today?
I am excellent. Thank you for asking, Maya. And how are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you so much for being here on our 9th episode of the Food Solidarity Podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you here. By the way, I love your motto, which is like, Mac your business. It's great. It's the best thing ever. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself, your story, and what got you into business development?
Excellent. So every sense of that, of macking your business, right? It's about leadership. It's about accountability. It's about integrity to our businesses and to the customers that we serve. So I own a hospitality business development firm, and we mean in every aspect of hospitality. We love to work with hotels, restaurants. As one of my students said, RBL. Restaurants, bars, and lounges. And I was like, wow, what a great term. And then I added C at the end for cafes. Of course, we also work with travel. So basically, we believe in bringing business outcomes and social impact together. It's not enough to, give people a job opportunity. We need to now provide better resources and ways for people to not only have great quality of life at work, but also great quality of life outside of work. And employers have the power to support that with or without money. So that's a little bit about my business, and I'm sure we'll get more into that. I'm born Southern California, born and raised there. I moved to New York 18 years ago, and I live in Harlem. I am a mother of Anastasia, who also owns her own business. And I'm very passionate about changing people's lives. And that comes from, my lineage, from like my family history. My great-grandfather was a pivotal leader in Leesburg, Florida. He was honored just a couple of years ago as a legend in the community of service. And that was instilled in me from my mother. My father was a police officer. I saw people in my lives continuously serving people. Although my mom was a bookkeeper, but she was very active at church, always volunteering her time to, help the poor. And she would do Sunday school for the kids. And I just believe that it really did provide a great quality of life for me to support and help people and give when you can. And so with that being said, I got into workforce development because I became a mom. I actually was in the hospitality industry at the time. I have over 20 years of experience in the industry. So I was, had already been working in the industry probably now. So my daughter's 8, so for like 10 years already, and making great income because I just knew where to work. And I'm also very good at what I did. I was very good at selling and making drinks and making customers come back, ask for me specifically. But once I became a mother, I needed a 9-to-5 job because, I didn't have the ability to have a babysitter in the evening. So I started working at NEMA, New Harlem East Merchants Association, which is now called Uptown Grand Central, focusing on East Harlem businesses in the northern corridor of it. So, which is a highly, highly trafficked area with people who live in homeless shelters, people who are recovering from drug abuse. And so that area, it's hard for business owners to make money because it's not attractive. When you see, you may want to go shop for furniture, but then you got to walk over 10 homeless people and all the things that come with that, dirty streets, needles, things of that sort. What's great about that opportunity, it led me to my workforce development career. and that was with Strive International. I attended a East Harlem Community Alliance meeting as a representative for the New Harlem East Merchants Association. And the CEO and president, Phil Weinberg, stood up and said, we're looking for someone from the community who's passionate about helping people find job opportunities and connected to the community and has this and has that. And it was ironically, my former employer at that time, the employer that I was working with at NEMA, looked at me directly and she was like, "This is your job." And I was like, "I was gonna tell you I'm gonna apply and I need a reference letter." And so that's what happened. She did. She gave me a reference letter and I got an interview. I interviewed twice. And lo and behold, I was there. I had the most successful local hiring program in all of New York. It was written by the Center of Urban Work for the Future. It was written about them, and it was written by JP Morgan Chase about because they were one of the funders that we had that supported the program. We helped over 2,000 people get employment with an average income of, I believe, 28,000. And these are great jobs. People were able, who didn't even have, that had a GED education, were able to get jobs at Mount Sinai, at a hospital when they didn't think they even qualified. Because of course, we provided the training for them to get it, but we were able to do that for many people in East Harlem, which has the highest unemployment rate and very unhealthy conditions for children. They have the highest asthma rate. So that type of work is rewarding. And I was glad that I led a team of 4 women to get us to those numbers. And then I was also very blessed to be able to create a program called Serve Up Harlem, which was focusing on training youth 18 to 24 hospitality training, getting them into the industry and starting them as hospitality leaders. So we provided financial literacy through Operation Hope. We provided all of the hospitality training with Cornell University with their online platform. And that was such a powerful partnership because, these students that normally wouldn't think I could go to Cornell University because it's a astute university. It has requirements. It costs, it's expensive. These kids were able to get a bona fide certification from Cornell University online university. And it was, incredible to see many of them get into these jobs and thrive and do extremely well. And so once I was complete with my contract at Strive, it was time for me to start my own business. So Miss Mack Enterprises has been around for a long time. I've been doing it for 10 years off and on as a little side hustle thing. But once I realized what my calling was, I no longer took some of the job offers that were offered to me once my contract was done at Strive. I said, it is time for me to move on and start my own business. So I became more, serious about my business. And over the last, I guess now almost 3 years. No, actually it is 3 years. It's my 3rd year anniversary this year. I forgot because we started officially May 18th, 2018. Okay. And here we are now, 2001. So, we produced a video Zoomcast last year of a 2-part series to hospitality under COVID. And we had Mitchell Davis, at the time was Chief Strategic Officer of James Beard Foundation. We had Chef Russell Jackson, who sits on not only celebrity chef, has been on tons of different chef shows and stuff, but also chef of his own restaurant, Reverence, and sits on the board for Aspen Institute. We had Melba, who is the first woman and first person of color to be the chairperson for the New York Hospitality Alliance. We had Andrew Rigi, who's the executive director of the Hospitality Alliance, and both of them served on Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio's Get New York Back, COVID task force to get New York back open and up and running. So we had great panels, very prestigious, and received a lot of great information from them. And then we did, of course, we had wonderful projects with Mosaic North America. We did work with Marriott Renaissance Hotel through them. We were able to do global day of service, global day of discovery with them. So we had lots of people from all over the world come to Harlem and participate and support small businesses in the community and really celebrate Harlem culture. And just last year in December, had a great project with Stella Artois, again, through Mosaic, our great partners there. And we were able to get over 30 greenhouses to Harlem restaurants that would have otherwise been closed because of winter. And so these business owners were able to keep their doors open, serve just the way they've continued to serve our community, awesome food and good times. And it's projects like these that get me excited. And then, of course, my most valuable partner, valuable client, I absolutely love them and thank them so much for their support, is Rock United, which is Restaurant Opportunity Center. It's a national nonprofit with an international global heart. Started in New York City right after 9/11 to support and advocate many of the employees from restaurant in the world. And as we all know, in the hospitality industry, especially here in New York, we depend on immigrants. We depend on people who are not considered documented in this country. And without them cooking on the line or washing dishes or prepping food or busing and serving, and we wouldn't have such the great industry that we have today. Now, of course, there's Americans like myself that work in the industry, but it would be insane not to support all people that work in this industry. And so the work that Rock New York has done has inspired others. And so not now, but there are 10 chapters across the country. And I'm excited that I'm partnered with 5 of them so far. And just within 1 year. And I'm just so thankful for their partnership. So I work with Rock New York, Rock New Orleans, Rock Detroit, Michigan, Rock Chicago, and Rock Philadelphia. And what we do is I provide hospitality training for entry level. I also do training for hospitality management. And I'm really excited. We just launched our small food business entrepreneur cohort. And we just launched that 4 days ago. So our students are in there on the 4th day. And we're excited because everyone in this class are business owners and have been previous Rock students before. And so we launched this in New York. And of course, we are going to be expanding this across the country, helping more small food businesses and help people live their dreams and really provide for their families in a real way. So what brings us here to now what we're doing with our Hope on the Menu is that throughout the years of me working in workforce development, I have found incredible men and women who were formerly incarcerated get the workforce training that they needed. And once they received that training and that support and additional resources that we were able to provide, they never went back to prison. They did not want to commit any more crimes because they found the pathway to being a positive contribution to society. And I'm really proud that I've been able to work next to men and women who served time in prison and now are out making a difference and changing people's lives. And so a couple of my students, participants that I've worked with, always call me and come back and say, Miss Mack, I'm doing good. I have a baby now, and I'm still working at that job you got me 2 years ago. And Miss Mack, I'm getting married. It's great. And I'm excited to hear that. So, hearing from Diandra and what she's been through, and now being a young woman starting her own food business is phenomenal. So, and hearing from all of the other speakers that we're going to have too. So.
That is just like such a grand service to society and just an absolutely huge success on your end. And I just first off want to congratulate you for that and for being incredible, because there's a lot to unpack in what you just told us. But, at the core, I think the hospitality industry does provide, not only an element of community, but also service that, what you said earlier, which is when something is rewarding, when you're serving others, sometimes we like actually more to serve others than we do to serve ourselves. And
Absolutely.
and I'm just wondering, like, you know, what is it about the hospitality industry that you find provides this like fertile ground for reintegration, but then also kind of fostering this success and this desire to do more and to continue serving?
That's a great question. Food, I always felt that food brings people together. When you break bread, you're a common ground because everyone needs to eat to survive. And the hospitality industry has always been an industry for people that weren't necessarily the most educated, weren't necessarily the most worldly, but they were the most creative. They were the most passionate, gifted, is another word. But I would like to, like, basically like the film High on the Hog, when you learn about how American cuisine began. These were not, men and women that were like college educated and went and did a stage in France. These were enslaved men and women. And these were men and women that went through a lot to start their catering businesses and, just be able to live. And so when you understand that that's part of where hospitality comes from, right? People serving kings and queens. This is an art form. This was a skill to be able to cook for the king. This is a skill to be able to cook for the president. It was a high honor to be able to serve in a style that was for elegant dining. And that's where hospitality's roots are from. And so when you understand that the common man is the one who created hospitality, I believe that that's why it still carries the spirit of inclusion, because it is an industry of family, and it is an industry of one being able to express one's passion and gifts. It's an industry that is forgiving. I've never seen a chef look at someone because they went to prison and said, "I'm not gonna let you cook any food." Like, that's crazy. I have met some of the best line cooks and some of the best chefs I've ever met have done time. I have a student in my class now. He has a restaurant consultancy firm. He has 3 felonies. Incredible leader, because he's brought on 3 other men to take action in their lives and say, "Hey, take action." And they gave credit to him, and these are young men. These aren't like old guys in their, like, 60s and 70s. I mean, these are young men in their 30s working together to, like, support each other to, do right and be contribute to society in a positive way. So I think that that's why the hospitality industry is what it is. It's because people really are forgiving and inclusive and excited to share their passion and their gifts with people.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. And I have 12 years of serving, busing, hostessing, bartending, the whole fleet. And I would say that is so true, that the restaurant industry is forgiving. But I'd also like to acknowledge the fact that hospitality in general, but I would like to acknowledge the fact that it can also be incredibly challenging.
Absolutely.
It's full of creativity and service and beauty, but at the same time, there is also kind of this dark side to the hospitality
Absolutely.
industry. I just want to touch on that. Yeah. What do you find like that provides a challenge for you? And
what's interesting is that as an African American woman, a Black American, and as one of my students said, a homegrown Negro, meaning my family is from here. We're in New York. You have African people, you have Black people from the Caribbean. My people were born here. And so our story is connected to of the history of this country. And so understanding that, and also living in New York City, because my hospitality career started at Red Lobster in Montclair, California, in my neighborhood. I didn't experience necessarily, racism or anything in that job because we had such a diverse group. I mean, I think my first manager, he was Filipino. So it wasn't like I was looked at differently because I was a Black woman. In fact, he loved my work and thought I was great and gave me lots of opportunity to move up. And when I moved here to New York, he supported my transfer to get a job here in New York. Anyways, when you're in the hospitality industry in New York, what I've seen and even what I've experienced, you experience racism. You experience stereotypes. Oh, well, because you're from Bangladesh, you're automatically a busser. Because you're Mexican, you're automatic, or you're from Peru, you're automatically a busser or a barback. And then management allows these incredible men and women to stay in those positions for 10, 15 years. I know people have been a busser for like 15 years. I'm like, why haven't you moved up to be a server? And it's not that they didn't want to. They probably never want. Some of them said they never thought about it. They just felt like this was their career. And others were like, I've never been given the opportunity. Same thing with bussers. I mean, you see with barbacks. I mean, it's like these people get casted into roles. And so also in New York, I'm not sure what it's like now, but like you needed to have a picture on your resume so they can see what you look like. So it's about being beautiful and skinny. And when I was working in this industry, I mean, I'm still beautiful, of course, but but I'm definitely not thin, not as thin as I was back then. But I remember being the only Black waitress where all of the staff that were Black were in the kitchen, either washing dishes or cooking on the line or prepping food. I remember customers asking me, oh, where are you from? Because the way I speak English. And because it sounded proper. And I was just like, found it interesting because they wouldn't say that to a white person. They wouldn't say, oh, where are you from? Because the way you speak English, it's so proper. I mean, these are the things that I dealt with. But because I am a Black woman in this country, and I know my country, and I love my country, I understood how to maneuver that. I know some people don't have that gift and skill. I know it's a gift and skill that I have, and I'm able to maneuver in crowds and around people that may not be familiar with me or may not be as excited to see someone who looks like me. So, and I've been able to win them over, and they love me afterwards. So, yes, it's not an easy industry. I mean, you're talking about also grueling hours where you're working hard, and there's no reward. Like there's no, in the United States, people love their 9-to-5 jobs because they get benefits. Well, there's no, like, not many restaurants offer medical and dental and 401k plan, and we're changing that. We're going to change that. People need to be able to have an opportunity to take care of their family fully, because and then we live here on tips. So, I mean, I'm all for the one wage. I'm not sure how that would play out in the hospitality industry in New York City, where one can easily make $1,000 or more a week. You can't make that on minimum wage in New York City. But it makes sense in Buffalo, right, to have someone get paid $15 an hour, but it doesn't make sense in New York. So we have to figure out how to serve our employees and as well as the employers, because if you're a small business and you have to pay someone, your entire team hourly wage, that can get quite expensive. So, those are some of the other challenges. So, racism, stereotypes, stereotyping people based on their culture that they should be a particular role, a particular job, the lack of benefits. And then the other one is a clear road to advancement. So again, like if people have been busters for 10 years, people have been servers and bartenders. Although in New York, it's funny, it's an ongoing joke that no one wants to be a manager in the New York restaurant because you make more money as a server or bartender and you have less responsibility. So why would I become a manager? But a lot of people desire to do it. And there should be a clear way for someone to say, I would like to be a manager one day. And then there should be some support in employers providing those opportunities. And then the other side too is that it could be very addictive with behavior. So you'll see, addictive behavior. So you'll see people who will become alcoholics, people who use like drugs after work, like cocaine and things like that. And I saw a lot of that in the restaurant industry too, that it's almost like as soon as you get out of work, we're going to spend half of our tips in the bar. And I mean, it's fun, it creates memories and it's, all of that stuff. But at the same time, it could get dangerous for some people because, they get addicted, they lose their money, they, drink all the time. They get, and also like, no one wants to be, hung out on coke and stuff. So that's the other aspect of the industry too. So there's a lot there. And then also it's not very fair for single parents. Especially obviously most single parents are women. And when you look at already the wage disparity between men and women make more money in the evening than they do in the daytime because there's wage increase, there's opportunity to make more money because you're working overnight or and then also the jobs that do not necessarily require a certain level of education. Hospitality is the industry that actually can give you a really decent amount of money. Again, I was making $1,000 a week as a bartender. And if I was a single mother, making $1,000 a week can go a long way with taking care of your children. So there's no childcare. And so parents are stuck trying to find a job that's 9 to 5. And even in the restaurant industry or hospitality industry, if it's not in a hotel, it's a concierge, or maybe you're a maid cleaning the bedrooms. I mean, these are not necessarily jobs that where you make lots of money. But also the other thing is, how can a mom work and then also advance herself? Like if she did want to go to school, if she did want to advance herself so she could get a better job, she wouldn't be able to because it's like, well, where does she get a job that she can afford to take care of herself and her children and then also be able to go to school at the same time? So the hospitality industry really needs to step it up in many, many ways. And it's good to see what's happening because coronavirus really shook up the industry. People do not want to go back to work. And it's not because of unemployment. That's poppycock. That's not true. Once unemployment ends, which I think is going to be this year in September, people are not necessarily running back to go back to work because they want to be treated with respect and dignity. And there has to be better opportunities. People don't just want to clock in, work, and then clock out and go home. Like what else is the industry providing? And now you're seeing employers doing sign-on bonuses, come on board and we'll give you $1,000 or $500 or, but that's all well and good. But then what's to play afterwards? What are my benefits? How are you supporting my growth outside of my job? I'm an actor or I aspire to own my own restaurant one day, or I want to create a trust fund for my kids. Like there has to be ways that employers have to think outside of the box when it comes to providing benefits for their employees.
Yeah. And so, that's one thing I really noticed everywhere I went back home is like, when I was in high school and college, like feels like all of maybe because I worked in the restaurant industry, but all of my friends had a job in the restaurant industry. And I was like shook at the amount of restaurants that were closed, or not closed, but like you'd walk in and there's 10 tables available and they're like, there's an hour wait. And you're like, why? And they're like, well, my chef just walked out. My like hostess just walked out. And I'm like, I can't imagine that. Like, and how do you incentivize people to go back to work after like COVID, you know, exposed the fact that not only are you an essential worker, but you're continuing to get treated like, you know, even worse by people nowadays that they're been inside socially distanced and don't know how to operate in a social setting anymore. And like if I, you know, I feel really blessed that I'm not a bartender anymore. And I just wonder like what would be your advice for like if you, I mean, I think it's really interesting that you touched that we have to be creative with our benefits as well, but what would your advice be for like a restaurant owner trying to get their team back on track?
Well, one, I would show gratitude and say, thank you for sticking through and sticking by me as the business owner. And thank you for believing me in my business. Because when your employees believe in you and they come into work and they put their kids for, daycare, whatever. And there was a few that were open. A lot of them weren't. But show gratitude. That's the first thing. And then number two, provide bonuses. Look at your KPIs, look at your key performance indicators, look at your sales goals, and see how you can challenge the team in a way to like upsell and cross-sell and suggest to sell, provide higher and better quality of customer service, which of course is not just only saying hello and good morning and hello, welcome to the restaurant, but making sure it's clean and people feel safe. And then say, you know what, hey team, if we hit the sales goal, I'm going to give everyone an additional $100 on their check. People need more money. Buy a Metro card. Of course, I'm talking about New York City, right? Buy your team some Metro cards that allow them to get to work for free. The other is look for resources that you can provide your team. Have a talk with them. Sit down and have a team meeting and say, what are some things that you're interested in having or doing, in your life? Or is anyone interested in computer classes? Is anyone interested in English classes? Is anyone interested in getting their food handlers? Find a way to provide additional quality, not only to the work they're doing, but who they are outside of work. And these are things that don't cost you any money. I mean, you could Google free computer classes. I'm working with a client right now who bought his delivery guy a laptop. What a great way to show gratitude. I mean, and it's a good quality laptop. Not that the delivery guy couldn't afford it, because he could totally afford to buy his own laptop. But the employer wanted to show his gratitude, like, hey, I know it's not easy delivering and you got to climb stairs and go into elevators and, whiz your bike past cars and trucks and, get the stuff there on time and, get back just to find more stuff to take back out and deliver in the rain and deliver in the heat and deliver in the winter. And, and so he was thankful. And I'm like, wow, what a great gesture, to buy that laptop for him. So, I mean, these are things that sometimes, we got to come outside of our shell. We got to stop thinking it's all about the money all the time and really, really be thankful for the people who I call them the unsung essential worker, because when they kept talking about essential workers, they only mentioned medical staff. And I was like, there's so many more people than just the medical staff. Not hating on the doctors and nurses and the EMT. Very, very thankful for them. But how could we forget the grocery store worker, the grocery store cashier, and the guy who, stocks the fruits and vegetables, that made sure it looks beautiful and clean. And, how can we forget the janitors who are the ones who are doing the COVID cleaning? How can we forget the delivery? One day I was looking out my window, and this is when it was like at the height of COVID in New York, and New York was pretty much shut down. There was no cars on the street. Nobody's walking around. I mean, because it was like everyone was supposed to stay in the house. And it was like probably like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon, and all you saw was nothing but delivery bikes whizzing. That's what was on the street. Delivery bikes, food delivery bikes, Amazon workers delivering packages. It was just there. It was a little bit weird that there was no one walking. No. So, but they didn't get any love. Nobody cared. And how about this? Okay, here in the United States, we have the restaurant restoration grant, supposed to help restaurants and all of this, but nothing for the employer. Everything for the business owner. And I get it. But what about the people? Because there was business owners who didn't even go in their own restaurant. They had staff to come in and clock in for them at work, and then they could just call from their home. Hi, how's everything going? And then eventually start going on vacation while their staff were working for them. That's a beautiful thing. I mean, as a business owner, you have the right to do that. I'm not hating on anybody. I went on vacation too. But that goes to show that it wasn't like some restaurant owners were just suffering so bad that their quality. No. What about the staff, the people who kept your restaurant open? How are we supporting them? So the restaurant restoration grant, although, we're excited for it, where was the lookout for the staff? Why wasn't there any money allocated to give them bonuses? Why wasn't there any money allocated for employers to give them a bonus or pay for some type of incentive for them? Why weren't the employees thought about at all? Not one dot. And so I have to question, these hospitality associations around the world, around the United States. Why are we not doing more for the people who actually help us shine?
Yeah, and I think as much as it comes down to the business owner also showing that gratitude and showing that love, it also is the responsibility of the government on so many levels to really ensure that it's not just this trickle down, okay, let's give grants to and I think in particular, if we're talking about, workforce reintegration programs, there's a lot going on in New York City right now. So I just wanted to touch on the mayoral race a little bit, because I know policing and the criminal justice system is really what's on the forefront of this race. And I'm wondering, I guess I want to ask you if you see that, there's a policy shift you would like to see, or something that would impact your work, especially with your such a great experience working with workforce reintegration.
Well, I'm also a daughter of a police officer, right? So I watched my dad come home, thankfully, in one tax. I mean, he has been shot at before, and he did get an award for the work that he did as a police officer in Los Angeles. I'm not. What I'm for is police reform. I'm not for the abolishment of police. That's a little bit extreme. We need someone to enforce the law. But first, before I get into all of that, I want people to understand where officer comes from. And the word comes from overseer. And the overseer was the one who would oversee the slaves, the enslaved people, and would crack the whip, would be the one to whip them, beat them if they're not in order. And so when you look at the history of what the word is and what that position is, and then where it is today now in quote unquote modern terms, it has not been really reformed since enslavement. It was always in place to brutalize and dominate. Now, don't get me wrong. There are great police officers out there, men and women that risk their lives every single day to keep the average citizen safe. People like my father. But then there's also people who are strategically placed in positions such as becoming a police officer, such as becoming a judge, such as, certain people from certain organizations are put in place to continue the chaos, to continue the division, to continue. And I think it's sad that people think that they can't trust the police because of these individuals who infiltrate these positions, such as being police officers. It's not all police officers. It's not the entire police force. It's individuals that do not do their jobs properly. And it's individuals that turn their back and turn a blind eye to it and don't report it or don't hold their friends accountable. or their coworkers accountable. And I think that's what people want. People want accountability for we're not saying people shouldn't, should be able to commit crimes. We're not saying that. Some people would argue, well, Eric Garner wouldn't be dead if he wasn't selling illegal cigarettes. Okay, sure, he should have not been selling illegal cigarettes. You're absolutely right. But he also didn't need to be choked to death, which was, poor protocol on the officer, right? So the thing is, like, we have to make sure that we hold people accountable, and that it is a tough job. It is a job that deals with your spirit. It deals with your energy. It deals with your logic, your integrity. I mean, that you see the worst part of humanity. And I remember my dad said that. He said, you see the worst in humanity when you're out there as a police officer. You see people go from one thing and turn around and kill someone else. You see, children's bodies from car accidents, and like the legs are over here and the body's over there. And, just things that people wouldn't even imagine. And I want people to remember that there are good men and women that are serving out there, and that what we want, or what I want, and what I believe a lot of people want, is for people to be held accountable, and that people see justice for any for people that are abused by law enforcement. So that's my stance on it. I think there needs to be a lot of internal cleaning of the police department around the, I would say around the world, because I have friends from all over the world who tell me, oh my God, stuff going on with the police, or this is going on. And I remember one time the major civil unrest that was happening in France, in Paris, when those kids were in the warehouse. And that was, I want to say that was about 10, well, maybe 10 or some years ago. But anyway, but the thing is, like, we need law enforcement, and it needs to be done in a way where it's inclusive and fair. And we need more people. We need more officers of color from the community. I would like to, I'd rather see Tyrone become a police officer and police his community, because he knows who the people are in the community. I think there needs to be more engagement from the police force in a more positive aspect. When you walk through the neighborhood, talk to kids. Say hello, like, let us know that they're human beings. There should be other positive aspects of, interaction with the police department. If every time a child sees the police, it's because for something negative, to arrest someone, or to, be an overseer, don't do that, and be nitpicky on stuff that they would never do in white communities, then of course children are going to grow up thinking that police are negative and bad. There needs to be better positive interactions with the police department on a regular basis. Not just like, oh, we're just doing something because of a street fair. No, every week there should be something positive with the police. And when you start engaging police with the community in a positive aspect, I bet you crime will start going down. I bet you there will be more respect, because the officers know the community that they're serving. I'll never forget I want to say 2019, or there was a Black man who, was a little bit suffered from mental illness, and everyone in the community knows the guy, because he's, Crazy Joe. Oh, there goes Crazy Joe on the block screaming again. He had a silver shower head that he found in the street, and he was holding it. Well, and this is part of gentrification, probably part of the problem with gentrification, which I'm not against gentrification. You have to understand what it is and what it means. But this is also the problem of gentrification, where you have people who move into a community that they're not familiar with, that they really don't interact and engage with. And so someone called the police, said that a crazy man has a gun, and the police didn't really, again, they don't know the community that they're serving, and they killed him. They shot him and killed him. And it was a shame. And it was an article written about it, about the downfalls of gentrification, because the people who called the police on him were the people who just moved there in the community and didn't know that. And then the police didn't even take the time to really look to see, who is that? Does he really have a gun? This is like, this is where we are in the world. And I don't want police officers to get a bad rap. There's just bad people. And there's also people also need time to like process what they deal with as being police officers, seeing death and the worst of humanity, as my dad would say. So, yeah. So anyway, I think there needs to be some like race teaching too. I think there needs to be some type of like cultural teaching. Like if you know that you're going to place people in a Black community, have them get educated about Black culture, you know, know the difference between a block party and then, somebody doing illegal, know the difference between 10 Black boys walking down the street having fun because they're getting ready to go play basketball and 10 Black gang members trying to kill somebody. I mean, it's just different. And if you really pay attention and get to know the community, we won't have these issues. It's more engagement on the positive aspect. That's what I think we need.
Yeah, absolutely.
I voted for Maya.
That will be just amazing. I love it. Wish I could still vote in New York because I would have all the way. Can you tell me one of your favorite stories of like a success story from somebody who was in your training program and like just is doing an amazing job right now?
Absolutely. I have a few, but one that comes to mind is Diandra. She started with our entry-level class in Rock, New York, and moved on to management class, and then, shared with us that she, in her first graduation, because we do, of course, virtual grad, and honey, ain't nothing like a Rock virtual graduation. And guys, in fact, you should join us for our next graduation. But so after Diandra's first class, first cohort that she took, her entry level, we always invite the students to ask their family and friends if they want to leave a message or join, record something that will play during the graduation, or we ask them to attend the graduation. Well, Diandra, I believe, had her sister, I'm about to cry, had her sister do a message for her, or her sister wanted to do a message for her. And her sister congratulated her, and she said, I know it hasn't been easy, when you went to prison and, da 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 da. She was like, and look at you now, so proud of you. And it was like so touching because it made Diandra cry, and of course, making me cry again. Because when you know that someone had it rough and gone and been through a lot, and then came out like a phoenix rising, it's incredible. So she moved on and took the management class, did extremely well in that. And now here she is in the food entrepreneurship class. And she's already a successful small business owner. She's working on quitting her job so she can work full time for herself. And she has a farm to table concept that she, does as a vendor at different events like food festivals and music festivals and stuff like that. And it's really great to see how this young woman is growing and thriving and becoming a hospitality leader. So I'm really excited that we're going to have her as a part of our panel on July 21st.
Amazing. I can't wait to meet her. So very lucky. Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I am just like, what a way to start my Friday. I love it.
Thank you. Yes, awesome. I'm so honored to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
What an amazing way to kick off our newest episodes of the Food Solidarity Podcast. Thanks so much for everyone who listened in, and also thank you for your patience. It's been quite a while since we've been able to share, but we're so happy to start these new episodes, all featuring some incredible members of the social gastronomy movement. While the previous 8 episodes of this series featured Food Solidarity Fund recipients who were talking about their responses to COVID-19 through food solidarity, job training, food security, nutrition education, empowering farmers, you name it. Please do go back on Spotify and you'll be able to find all of our previous episodes. Also, make sure to stay tuned for the newer episodes. Hi, this is Maya Maeda, and you're listening to the Food Solidarity Podcast. conversations with people around the world who are using the power of food to create social change.